Valerie Tyndall was born on August 29, 2005, in Indianapolis, Indiana, into a large and loving family. Her parents, a brother, and 4 sisters. At some point during her childhood, the family decided to leave the city behind and settle in Arlington, a quiet, tight-knit town about an hour outside Indianapolis. With just a few hundred residents, it was the kind of place where everyone knew each other and where danger felt like a distant concept. Valerie quickly adapted. She enrolled in the local school, made friends easily, and grew fond of small-town life. As she got older, she began picking up part-time jobs, eager to earn her own money. She started out working in a couple of local restaurants, then eventually joined a lawn care company. That job turned out to be the perfect fit. The hours were flexible enough to balance with school, and the work itself, operating a mower, was straightforward and physically manageable. By 2023, Valerie was 17 and focused on her future. She worked hard in school, hoping to get accepted into a veterinary program. Her love for animals had been a part of her since childhood, and she was determined to turn that passion into a career. That summer, while her peers were enjoying the break, Valerie was researching colleges and pushing through long days of lawn work, quietly saving for the life she had carefully planned. On the morning of June 7th, Valerie told her parents she was heading to work. She said goodbye, just like any other day, and walked out the door. Her mother expected her back within a few hours, but as the day wore on, something didn't feel right. Valerie wasn't answering her phone, and by late afternoon, concern turned into alarm. Her mom called her boss, Patrick, a longtime family friend and neighbor who ran the lawn care business Valerie worked for. What he said chilled her. Patrick told her that Valerie didn't have a shift scheduled that day, and she hadn't shown up at all. That single revelation shifted everything. Her parents tried to stay calm, but their unease deepened. Valerie was responsible, predictable. This wasn't like her. Her mother wondered if, just maybe, Valerie had lied about work to spend time with friends. It was out of character, but at that point, hope was all they had. They called everyone they could think of. Friends, classmates, neighbors, no one had seen her. By the next morning, with no sign of their daughter and her phone still silent, Valerie's parents reported her missing. Police began by speaking with the family and, as is routine in such cases, initially entertained the possibility that Valerie had left home voluntarily. Her mother noted that Wednesdays weren't usually workdays for Valerie, but she had assumed her daughter had picked up an extra shift. That assumption now only added to the mystery. Officers quickly sat down with Valerie's boss, Patrick, who confirmed she hadn't been scheduled to work that day. Her last shift was the Tuesday before her disappearance. Investigators then began working their way through her circle: friends, classmates, neighbors. But no one had seen her. No one had any idea where she might be. In a town as small as Arlington, where everyone knows everyone, the investigation moved swiftly. Officers interviewed anyone who might have crossed paths with Valerie that day, but every lead came up cold, except for one. A witness claimed to have seen Valerie driving shortly after noon on the day she vanished. But that sighting, while credible, did little to move the case forward. It provided a time frame, not a direction. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support means a lot to us and helps us grow. A huge thank you to everyone who's been watching. As the days slipped by with no word from Valerie, police started to face the grim reality. She likely wasn't coming home on her own. They narrowed the investigation to 2 primary theories. Either Valerie had run away, or she had been the victim of foul play. Her parents held out hope for the first possibility. The thought of her running away was painful, but it was survivable. They knew it didn't make sense. Valerie was thriving at school, working toward her dream of becoming a veterinarian, and nothing at home suggested she wanted to leave. But clinging to that hope was better than imagining the alternative. In the weeks that followed, law enforcement, family, and volunteers fanned out across Arlington. They searched fields, wooded areas, back roads, everywhere a car might have gone unnoticed. Detectives also urged the public to help them locate Valerie's vehicle. In a town that small, a missing car should have stood out. The fact that no one had seen it only deepened the mystery. Either Valerie had driven it out of town herself, or someone had made it disappear. Nearly 3 weeks after Valerie vanished, a major development surfaced. On June 26th, police located her car, abandoned in the parking lot of an apartment complex in Shelbyville, about 20 miles from Arlington. The license plates had been removed, and the doors were locked. Inside, there were no signs of a struggle. No blood, no personal items, nothing that could offer immediate clues. But investigators quickly noticed something significant. The complex where the car was found happened to be one of the properties serviced by the lawn care company Valerie worked for. That fact made her boss, Patrick, suddenly a lot more interesting. Patrick had previously told police that Valerie hadn't been scheduled to work that day. But now, detectives began to wonder if he was withholding information. They decided to dig deeper. When officers canvassed the neighborhood around the apartment complex, they spoke to a witness who remembered seeing Valerie there on the day she disappeared, and she wasn't alone. According to the witness, her boss Patrick was in the car with her. Detectives went straight back to Patrick. At first, he stuck to his original story. He hadn't seen Valerie that day. But when they confronted him with the witness statement and the discovery of her vehicle, his version of events changed dramatically. He now claimed that he had met Valerie in Shelbyville after she asked him for a ride to Homer, a small nearby town. According to Patrick, she said she planned to run away and someone would be waiting there to pick her up. He agreed to drive her. Once in Homer, Valerie supposedly got out of his car and into another vehicle with an unidentified man. Patrick said he never saw her again. The next day, he picked up Valerie's Jeep and left it at the Shelbyville apartment complex. He told police he was simply trying to help. Detectives quickly spotted cracks in Patrick's version of events. They had already reviewed the location data from Valerie's phone, and the results didn't line up. According to the data, her phone had last been active in Arlington, not in Shelbyville or Homer as Patrick claimed. This strongly suggested that whatever happened to Valerie occurred before she ever left town. When confronted with this contradiction, Patrick changed his story again. Now he claimed that Valerie had met him near the Shelbyville apartment complex, then rode with him to his house. He said he left her there alone while he went to work, and when he returned later that day, she was gone. To the detectives, this version sounded even less believable than the first. They asked Patrick to hand over his phone. He complied, and investigators quickly found something noteworthy. A string of text messages exchanged with Valerie on the day she vanished. At 11:23 a.m., Valerie had texted, "I'll be there soon." Hours later, Patrick replied, "Where are you?" And again, "Where are you?" But Valerie never responded. The texts only deepened the detectives' suspicions, and they began to dig into Patrick's personal connection to Valerie. When they spoke to her parents, her mother shared a troubling observation. Patrick had always seemed unusually close to her daughter. Despite being 59 years old, he often spent time with Valerie outside of work, taking her shopping, giving her gifts, and building what looked more like a relationship than a typical employer-employee bond. It was behavior that had unsettled Valerie's mother for some time. Now, it felt even more ominous. Initially, Valerie's mother hadn't given much weight to her concerns about Patrick. After all, he was a longtime family friend, and Valerie was close with his daughter. She assumed Patrick was simply being kind and supportive. But one incident stood out, and it had always felt a little off. Patrick once invited Valerie to visit an aquarium in another city. Her parents agreed, thinking it was a family outing. Only later did they learn that Patrick had gone alone with Valerie. That detail, her mother admitted, struck her as strange. There was more. On the evening of June 7th, the same day Valerie disappeared, Patrick and his wife stopped by the Tyndall home. During their visit, Patrick casually suggested that Valerie might have run away and might never return. His comment, seemingly out of nowhere, raised alarms in hindsight. Then came the most troubling revelation. Valerie's mom mentioned that Patrick had been tracking Valerie's phone through a special app. He claimed it was for work purposes. But detectives immediately spotted a glaring inconsistency. If Patrick had access to Valerie's real-time location, why did he text her multiple times that day, asking, "Where are you?" The contradiction didn't sit right with investigators. With all the mounting details, his ever-changing story, the texts, the tracking app, and his oddly close relationship with Valerie, the detectives were nearly certain Patrick was involved in her disappearance. Still, they were missing a key piece: physical evidence. Valerie had not yet been found, and without a body, they couldn't file murder charges. But Patrick had broken the law. He'd lied during a criminal investigation, and that gave detectives just enough to act. They arrested him for making false statements, a calculated move designed to apply pressure. They hoped the weight of an arrest might finally crack him open. Patrick continued to deny any involvement in Valerie's disappearance. Detectives knew they needed a warrant to search his property, but without hard evidence, the process dragged on for months. Then, a new lead surfaced. Several of Patrick's neighbors reported something deeply suspicious. The night after Valerie vanished, around 2 a.m., they saw him dismantling and burning his garage. In the dark, under the cover of night, flames rose from the property, an odd time for home renovation. Finally, on October 11th, investigators obtained the warrant they had long been waiting for. Patrick's home sat on a large piece of rural land, with a pond at its center. As the search began, 4 cadaver dogs were brought in, and all 4 alerted near the water, signaling the scent of human remains. But divers found nothing in the pond. Forensics experts explained that if a body had once been placed nearby, the scent could have leached into the water over time. With this possibility in mind, investigators widened their search across the entire property. They brought in aerial support, a helicopter equipped with ground-penetrating radar, and used the data to create a detailed map highlighting several areas where the earth had been disturbed. Given the size of the land, the search stretched on for weeks. Then, on November 28th, attention shifted to a large mound of construction debris mixed with dirt. As crews sifted through the pile, they uncovered 2 wooden crates buried beneath the rubble. The first contained a strange collection of VHS tapes and documents. The contents have yet to be made public. But the second crate held a devastating discovery: human remains sealed inside black garbage bags. Due to the advanced state of decomposition, visual identification was impossible. But detectives quickly noticed a detail that gave them pause. The fingernails were painted the same color Valerie had worn on the day she vanished. The remains were sent to the medical examiner. Soon, the forensic results confirmed what everyone had feared. The body belonged to 17-year-old Valerie Tyndall. With this confirmation, authorities formally charged Patrick with her murder. He was brought in for another round of questioning, and this time, with the evidence stacked against him, he no longer denied his involvement. Yet again, however, his story raised serious doubts. Patrick claimed that he had met Valerie that day near the Shelbyville apartment complex for work. Afterward, he said, they returned to his home, where he also kept his office. It was there, he alleged, that things spiraled out of control. According to his version, Valerie had been trying to seduce him and began blackmailing him that day, demanding a new car in exchange for her silence. If he refused, she allegedly threatened to accuse him of inappropriate conduct and ruin his life. Panicked, Patrick claimed, he lashed out. What began as a heated argument turned physical. In a moment of desperation, he said, he grabbed his belt and strangled her. After the murder, Patrick moved her body into his office and left it there overnight. The next day, he went to a store, bought wooden planks, and built 2 makeshift coffins, one for Valerie's body and the other for a collection of old documents and VHS tapes. He wrapped her remains in garbage bags and sealed them with duct tape to mask the smell, then lowered the crates into a pit on his property. To conceal the burial site, he used piles of construction debris and covered them with soil. The purpose behind Patrick's decision to burn down his garage remains uncertain, but the timing raised alarm bells. He set the fire in the middle of the night, just hours after Valerie vanished. Investigators suspect the blaze may have been a smokescreen, masking his true intent: to destroy incriminating evidence tied to the murder. Equally chilling was the location where Valerie's body was eventually found, just 100 yards from her parents' home. For nearly 6 months, her family had been searching, unaware that she had been buried so close. When detectives asked Patrick how he felt after killing Valerie, his response was disturbingly indifferent. He said that nothing in his life had really changed. To investigators, his story reeked of manipulation. Patrick continued to paint himself as a victim, claiming that he acted only after Valerie allegedly blackmailed him. But detectives found this explanation unconvincing. A far more plausible theory was that Patrick, who had grown increasingly close to Valerie over time, had developed an unhealthy fixation. On the day of the murder, he likely brought her to his home under the pretense of work. At some point, he may have made an unwanted advance, and when Valerie refused, he panicked. Fearing she would tell someone, he chose to silence her permanently. Valerie's family also cast serious doubt on Patrick's claims. According to her loved ones, she adored her car. She'd even said she wanted to drive it for the rest of her life. The idea that she would blackmail someone for a new one seemed absurd. Following Patrick's arrest, detectives unearthed even more damning evidence. A forensic review of his smartphone revealed that, shortly after returning home on the day of the murder, he began deleting various apps. But he overlooked one crucial piece of digital evidence: his health app. The app recorded a sharp spike in Patrick's heart rate for several minutes shortly after he arrived home. Investigators believed that this was the moment he murdered Valerie and began disposing of her body. Patrick also confessed to discarding Valerie's license plates and car keys in a nearby river, hoping to delay the discovery of her vehicle and throw investigators off track. One especially chilling detail emerged during his confession. After using his belt to strangle Valerie, Patrick casually looped it back through his pants and wore it as if nothing had happened. For Valerie's parents, the revelation that their neighbor and family friend was the killer came as a crushing blow. Despite Patrick's odd behavior, they had never truly believed he was involved. Detectives had kept most details of the investigation confidential to protect the integrity of the case, so Valerie's family only learned the full extent of what had happened after Patrick's arrest. Once in custody and appointed a public defender, Patrick made no effort to withdraw his confession. Instead, he and his attorney moved to negotiate a plea deal. Patrick would plead guilty to murder, and in return, the original charge for giving false statements would be dropped. As a result of the agreement, Patrick stood before a judge on March 11, 2024, just months after his arrest, and received a 57-year prison sentence. While this spared the Tyndall family the pain of a lengthy trial and the emotional toll of hearing defense arguments attempting to justify the crime, the plea deal carried a painful consequence. It required only that Patrick admit guilt in the murder, nothing more. This meant Valerie's parents might never learn the full truth about what happened that day. Investigators' theory may be the most plausible, but without a full confession, the gaps may never be filled. Patrick's family was equally shaken by the truth. His wife and children, including a daughter who had once been close friends with Valerie, had lived just a few yards from where her body lay buried, unaware for nearly 6 months. One final mystery still haunts the case. Alongside Valerie's remains, Patrick had buried a second wooden crate, filled with VHS tapes and documents. Because of the plea deal, he was never required to explain what those tapes contained. It's entirely possible they held further incriminating material, evidence of other wrongdoing that Patrick feared might come to light if police searched his home. Now, with Patrick serving a lengthy sentence, those tapes may remain the case's most unsettling, unanswered question. Be sure to let us know what you think of the story in the comments below. And if you like this video, smash the like button and don't forget to subscribe. A playlist is going to pop up right now with more videos you'll love. See you guys next time.